paper right now, nothing has been made official, even though we've heard two separate reports that this fight has been set. Like, anytime you see something like is set, don't assume that the fight is officially on or anything. Until we have, I mean, and to be honest with you, it's really until they walk to the ring. I mean, we've seen fights canceled, we've seen fights penciled in, and then not pan out. But on paper right now, penciled in, and we were told this last month, but I guess they're reporting it again. But Errol Spence Jr. and Sebastian Fundora, newly crowned WBC, WBO junior middleweight champion, are set to face off this October, okay? Now, in Dallas. But like I said, nothing has been made official. Nothing has been, no exact date, no exact venue. We're hitting the middle of August. And we're heading into football season, okay? When we're talking about potentially hosting this fight at AT&T, if that's the plan, but they're saying they're trying to stage this in Dallas, and there's really no other place, I would think, outside of the practice center, which is where, I forgot who Spence fought. Ocampo. He fought him at the practice center where the Dallas Cowboys play. But I would think this would be in the main arena or in the main stadium. But then you're battling, and I don't know what the football schedule for the Dallas Cowboys home schedule looks like. But we're told that this fight is supposed to take place. And even as I say that, there's no guarantee it'll be for the WBO Junior Middleweight Championship, more so than the WBC. We'll get to that, I guess later. But yeah, man, I'll tell you, there's a lot of question marks for me with this. And a lot of the question marks come from the end of Errol Spence Jr. The last time we saw Errol Spence Jr., he took a pretty vicious beating from Terrence Crawford in really a one-sided affair. I don't need to go into the obvious, last 4 years of Errol Spence's life, from the accident to the eye surgeries. Like, we already know this. And we're coming off, really now it's going to be close to a year and a half removed from Errol Spence, taking that beating from Terrence Crawford. And now he's moving up in weight. And in his first fight, he's going in against, again, reportedly, against Sebastian Fundora, who's coming off a win over Tim Tszyu. And again, a fight, some people would argue that it should have been stopped earlier, because of the cut. But, we've seen Fundora in there with one of the top 154 guys, a champion, Well, what was supposed to be crowned as a champion, I guess, right? So, I'll tell you, man, this fight for Errol Spence draws a little concern for me. I know the general consensus is he'll go in there, he'll wipe the floor with Sebastian Fundora. Fundora should, we've seen him knocked out, and totally understand that. But boxing, much of the time, man, is based on context of where fighters are at going into the ring. And when I look at where both guys are at right now, this is an interesting question when you pose it to somebody that looks at this fight like it's a whitewash for Errol Spence. And, you start to ask yourself, or I ask this question, right now, who's in better form? Right? Who's in better form right now? We really have to ask this question, because I think the consensus from some is that Errol Spence only has one loss, and you shouldn't totally write off a fighter off of one loss, and I agree with that. But I say this, like, context is so important, because you can't just look at Errol Spence equally and say, oh, well, it's just one loss, who cares? Look at the intangibles. like I said, I'm not going to go into, the accident and the eye injury, but you have to put that on the table. You have to put in the inactivity in the last 3 years. And coming off this fight with Terrence Crawford, where he took the beating of his career, with now another 1.5 year layoff with eye surgery. This is something that cannot go unnoticed. Going into this fight, also adding, none of us know who his trainer is at this stage. Him and Derek James parted ways. There was rumors potentially about him going with Calvin Ford. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But we're expecting, or some are expecting, the Errol Spence of old to show up in a new division against a guy that has fought other top junior middleweights. Again, context is everything in the sport. And, for Errol Spence Jr., I have a hope and a worry. My hope is Errol Spence comes back to, at the very least, close to a form that is still going to be somebody who's going to be competitive. My concern, and I'll be honest with you guys, and I'm more leaning towards this mentality that we've seen the best Errol Spence we're going to see at this stage. And he's not the guy that we've seen in the last 3-4 years. He's only a human being. And, I feel, particularly with the new trainer and coming off the beating that he took from Terrence Crawford, I would have much preferred Errol Spence take a decent, good kind of fight that is not going to be physically taxing, just to get some of those cobwebs off, okay? Again, he's going to be out almost 1.5 years, depending whenever this fight takes place in October. New trainer, new division, against a fighter who isn't, perfect by any means, but could potentially cause problems if Errol Spence isn't the Errol Spence of old. And the question is, does anybody believe we have that same Errol Spence? My belief is no. What version of Errol Spence is left, I guess we'll have to see. But as I'm making this video right now, guys, there's no guarantee. This fight has not been made official. Date, venue, any of that. It's penciled in. But we got this news last month that they agreed upon it. So we'll have to see. I'm very interested. I'll be watching. I want to see what version of Errol Spence we have right now. Is he going to be that same kind of guy at 147 where he was the big guy? He imposed his size. He's at 154. He's not that big. Again, I got to tell you guys, Errol Spence, even at welterweight, as what we found out, wasn't the strongest welterweight, okay? He fought the strongest welterweight, but going up to 154 now, much of his game was predicated on him being the pressure fighter, but he doesn't have that size advantage at 154, and that you can't ignore that, okay? Because it plays a part into his style. Like Errol Spence isn't a counterpuncher and is going to sit there and kind of be the boxer per se. He's going to try to apply pressure, but based on the style matchup that I feel this Fundora fight can be, I'm just interested to see if it ends up becoming a firefight. And Errol Spence, who is more of a volume, he causes issues with volume more so than him having one-punch power. I'm just wondering how taxing on Errol Spence this fight is going to be, with all the things I mentioned. The inactivity, going up in weight, and again, coming off that kind of fight with the new trainer. Whoever that's going to be, who we don't know yet. Just things to consider, guys. So, they're saying October. I guess we'll see. We're in the middle of August. I think, if at anything, they want to kind of try to keep promoting this Canelo Berlanga fight, which is under the PBC banner, and maybe they'll tackle that after. But again, man, that's September 14th, so maybe we hear something at the beginning of September, official news. So we'll see, man. Let me know Where do you see Errol Spence at this stage? Do you expect the Errol Spence of old? I want to say this is gonna be a past best Errol Spence. Is that enough to beat Sebastian Fundora? That's the question mark. But we'll see. Boxing this weekend. We got the Mbilian and Derevyanchenko fight that'll be on the Zone, I believe, or it might be on ESPN. Don't quote me. I'll come back and check on that. But other than that, man, we were heading into the fall season. We're in August. Next month is, in the United States. I mean, a lot of y'all, we have a lot of UK. I have a lot of UK followers, but, a lot of y'all in the States, what September is. College football and NFL football season. So the scheduling gets very tight around this time. So we'll see what fights end up materializing. Tank, who's he going to fight in the fall? We already got fights set for October. Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. So lots in store, man. But let me know what you think, man. Errol Spence Jr., Sebastian Fundora. Is this a dangerous fight for Errol Spence to take with that long of a layoff, new trainer, and coming off that beating he took from Terrence Crawford? So enjoy you guys this weekend.